Donald Trump is planning to gut Dodd-Frank. He already signed an executive action order this morning, which rolls back a regulation put in place by the Obama administration that requires advisors on retirement accounts to work in the best interests of their clients.
That would be like forcing people who run universities to work in the best interests of their students. I don't like the sound of that.
This is called the fiduciary rule. We've talked about it on this program, and I certainly have interviewed a couple of people about it on Ring of Fire. Just contemplate this. I mean, first off, I wouldn't go to anybody who is not a fiduciary, ever. Why would you go to a financial advisor? But people don't ask. It's a little bit opaque. People are not that savvy about this stuff. I'm certainly not. I only know this from interviews I do on Ring of Fire with some of those lawyers down there who are from regulatory agents, who sue over securities over stuff like this. Tell you where we need some extreme vetting is on the financial advisors. So this has been rolled back, and here is Donald Trump just moments ago talking about what his plans are to gut more protection for consumers.
Great plan, but I want to have your input on the plan in particular, and to do what we have to do in terms of regulation. We have some of the bankers here. There's nobody better to tell me about Dodd-Frank than Jamie, so you're going to tell me about it, but we expect to be cutting a lot out of Dodd-Frank because, frankly, I have so many people, friends of mine, that have nice businesses. They can't borrow money. They just can't get any money because the banks just won't let them borrow because of the rules and regulations in Dodd-Frank. So we'll be talking about that, Jamie, in terms
Pause
of the
it.
banking industry.
That's it. I assume he's talking to Jamie Dimon.
Yeah. Nobody better.
The idea that Dodd-Frank is preventing banks from loaning money now is a joke. It's a joke. It's just a joke. But there you go, folks. Just the beginning. The only upside to any of this that we're talking about is that these regulations can come back at one point.
And by the way,
The stuff that's going to happen with the Supreme Court, the stuff that, honestly,
that's
the stuff that happens with the Supreme Court and the economic destruction that a lot of this, I think, is going to create, it's going to be much harder.
So break that
fix.
down. So the Supreme Court is unions, money in politics, women's health, women's rights, civil rights.
Agencies' ability to regulate. The Chevron doctrine, and when we play Ian Millhiser's thing, we explain this. But the Chevron doctrine basically came out of a case between Chevron and NRDC, where the Supreme Court edified the idea that agencies have the right to make rules, because the way that we regulate in this country, and people argued at the time, I was one of those people, that Dodd-Frank was insufficient, because what Dodd-Frank does basically is it suggests a broad framework. And then it leaves it up to the SEC and other regulatory agencies to construct the rules. And the problem is that even if the people at the SEC are good and have good intentions, not always the case in terms of their enforcement, but even if in the context of developing these rules, they meet with Jamie Dimon's lawyers who say, if you do this, we're going to sue you. And we'll tie you up in court for 3 or 4 or 5 years. And we can spend so much money on this because there's so much money at stake for us. So if you construct it this way, we can negotiate and we can come to some type of settlement before we even have to go to court. Sometimes they go to court, sometimes they don't, and this is the process. A lot of people want to just use a meat cleaver statutorily separate commercial banks from investment banks. End of story. When Chevron is reversed, what will happen is the SEC, the EPA, all these other agencies won't even have the ability to have deference from the courts when they make these rules. The courts can come in and apply all sorts of tests. This is too onerous on this industry. It destroys the ability of the agencies to make rules. That's going to be a big part of it. Labor laws. I mean, all sorts of stuff. It's going to be.
So it will, in fact, yeah, it will implicate the ability
Supreme
to
Court,
restore a lot of these things.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So they're
gotta wait
interconnected. I just wanted
30
to,
years
yeah, I just
before
wanted to
there's
sort
the
of
next one.
tease out that
Of
connection.
course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean,
I just hope we
it's
didn't
not
emotionally
inconceivable.
blackmail
I mean,
people.
if Ginsburg or Breyer leave the court in the next 4 years, even if Kennedy leaves the court in the next 4 years, if any two of those leave, it's not inconceivable to me that you would have a Supreme Court that could basically say, Social Security, Medicare, no, we have to restrict that. You certainly can't grow it. Federal government doesn't have the right to do that. Not inconceivable. Because a lot of these guys want to bring us back to the sort of the Lochner era.
And then you know what happens then. Susan Sarandon's iPhone blows up.
A lot of people get activated. Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Over. Subscribe.